From the News Channel 5 Network, this is MorningLine.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine. I am Nick Barris. It is Thursday, Open Phones Thursday here on the Plus. Let's get those lines open. We'll get it rocking and rolling. I have the telephone right here. All right, it's got the buttons on there. We can fill it up. You see the number on the screen, 737-7587 is the number. If you would like to jump in and join in the conversation, lots of news to talk about, lots of developments from the past week. Want to get your take on it, your thoughts, and as always, as I say, I want to set the table for us. I'm going to throw some things out that caught my attention. If you'd like to comment on some of those, great. If you have things that you want to talk about yourself, and it doesn't just have to be about the news, observations, what's going on this summer, plans for the 4th of July, give us a holler. The line's open, but let me throw a few things out there just to start things off. And first and foremost, this morning, I want to take a moment to talk about Josh Osborne. Josh Osborne, a good friend of mine, someone who was an inspiration to so many people. And God, I hate looking at that picture because that's the beginning of the Josh Osborne story, and those chains and his father and stepmother and what they did to him back when he was rescued in 2004. And look at him there at the prom. He came so far. What a sweet, sweet boy who grew into a man. He died early yesterday morning at age 24. You know, he came to know the governor, helped pass stricter child abuse laws. There he is with his beloved aunt, Tammy Dozier, who was just a wonderful woman who cared for him in the years after he was rescued from his abusive parents. But let me just say here, as we look at these different pictures, that's the last time I saw Josh. That was last year. We went and did a story where he's volunteering, helping children. Just what to say about him. It's sad for me and Bud Nelson, who did the stories over the years. You know, we do stories with so many amazing people that do incredible things, and he's one that's at the very top of the list that had an influence on me. And I walked away with him understanding the importance of forgiveness, putting things behind you and moving forward. And Josh, from the day he was born, had a struggle on his hands. He was born with a bad heart, was the youngest heart transplant recipient in the state at the time back in 1989. Had to battle through that for years. Then he went through this, situation where he had some horrible abuse. His father and stepmother were both convicted of aggravated attempted child neglect. But, he told police that they would chain him to a bed and hardly fed him. Then later in life, he developed kidney failure. In fact, his kidneys completely failed and had to go through 12 hours of dialysis over the past several years, every single day. In the end here, I think his body finally broke down. But, what I want to remember Josh for is just the kind, sweet person that forgave and made everyone around him smile and tried to make a difference in other people's lives. It was never, ever about him. He talked to me hoping his story would help others. He got on board. His big thing was child abuse prevention, reaching out to victims and to lawmakers trying to pass tougher laws. But Josh, anyway, at age 24, passed away far too young. There will be a memorial for him next Friday, not this Friday, but next Friday in Smyrna at 7 o'clock. And we'll have more details on that for you. I'll be there. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that. Josh Osborne will be greatly missed and just a wonderful, wonderful person and a good friend. Moving from that, and just wanted to get that first and foremost because that was high on my list of things to talk about this morning because he meant so much to me. But moving on, other items. On a lighter note, the World Cup continues. Soccer. I was talking to Mary Elena before the show, where we're discussing the popularity of World Cup in this country. Now the U.S., as you know, after a good run, is out. Do you enjoy watching World Cup soccer? Were you tired of it? I'll tell you this right now. For me, and I'm a big sports fan of all types. I appreciate all these athletes, but I enjoy watching World Cup soccer. I enjoy rooting for the U.S., but I enjoy, these other teams. Lionel Messi with Argentina, the best player in the world. Some of the plays these guys make, incredible stuff. I enjoy World Cup soccer, but outside of the World Cup, while I think it's great to play the sport, I don't really care to watch soccer. I just don't. Not a big soccer buff. Watching it on a regular basis, but at the highest level, I do. Are you going to still watch it? Do you think this World Cup performance is going to make soccer more popular in this country? Be curious to hear what you think about that if you want to jump in. But yeah, the U.S. obviously out, though it still continues. A couple other items. You know, we continue to have these drownings in area lakes, and we've done stories that a lot of people are going to be out on the 4th of July tomorrow. And gosh, I hope you're not drinking on the boat. And if you do drink, that you're very cautious and you don't go out behind the wheel of the boat. They're going to be out watching for you with TWRA. But it still makes me scratch my head how these people drown. And of course, I guess in what instance, how do people drown? There can be a lot of reasons. And first and foremost, I think it's folks who underestimate the danger. I think there are people that are not strong swimmers and they jump in and they find themselves in over their heads when they should not be. Here's a good rule of thumb, folks. If you don't know how to swim, you wear a life vest or you don't go anywhere near the water, okay? Just not smart. But a lot of these are children or younger people who I don't think recognize the dangers. Anyway, your take on all of that and the waterways and such, you know, and how that plays out. Because I'll tell you what, I fear there's going to be more fatalities this holiday weekend on the 4th. Are you going to be watching the 4th of July fireworks? One side, I think, note to all of these fireworks stands that are set up, and in some areas you can buy these fireworks. In Wilson County, for instance, my son loves the 4th of July, and we let him buy some items, and under close supervision we blow some things off. You know those mortars you can buy now? Smaller versions of these. Now Nashville has one of the top fireworks shows in the country, and those are the containers that hold the big round balls that go up and blow up and make these big, beautiful starbursts. Well, you know, you can buy those smaller ones. They're about the size of an egg or a ping pong ball that you can drop into mortars yourself. Well, there was a case just this week where they were blowing them off illegally inside the Murfreesboro city limits, and actually some of these folks doing this, when police arrived to shut it down, fired these mortars at squad cars. I mean, that's like, you know, shooting a grenade at someone, except there's no shrapnel. I mean, they blow and it's fire. And I remember, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, I did a story on a law enforcement officer under the same circumstance in Columbia. And one of the mortars actually connected, hit the squad car with him in it, caught him on fire, and melted part of his polyester police uniform to his skin because of the heat that came off this mortar that exploded inside the vehicle. Dangerous stuff with some of these things, and some of these people like the idea of using them as weapons, and so we see more and more of that. So we want to be careful. And hey, you know, remember on Old Hickory Lake there was the story talking about the lakes and such drownings? The other side note, remember all those ducks and waterfowl? I think there was a raccoon and even a squirrel that turned up dead off the water in a little cove there on Old Hickory Lake. My understanding is TWRA has come back with the testing that was done on those animals that turned up dead, and they were exposed to some type of very, very potent pesticide. The question was now, or is now, was that pesticide intentionally put on them, or is it something that accidentally got into the water supply? And my question is, why is there a pesticide of that potency out there anyway, and who's using it? I hope they get to the bottom of it, but at least now we know it wasn't some odd disease or waterborne illness that killed these creatures, but more a pesticide, which, by the way, if you encounter, is going to make you sick as well. So that was certainly a concern. Let me see, a couple other items there that we might want to touch bases on as we go through this 4th of July celebration, of course, coming up. We showed you those fireworks and how that plays out. State fairs are underway. You see the story out of Western Kentucky where they had those storms, and you know, the concerns right now about some of the rides there in the Hopkinsville area being looked at again because the storms ripped through there. Some of the rides were stopped and fairgoers sent to a shelter yesterday or the day before. One ride attendant was also injured as he tried to exit a ticket booth there. That was because of the storms. Hopefully things clear up, even though now we know there is a hurricane now, the first one of the season, making its way through the Gulf. A few other items to touch bases on. One other thing, I remember years ago coming here, I'd always heard about the farm and kind of a gathering place for, they would say, hippies, 3-square-mile plot of land in Summertown. Well, the founder, Stephen Gaskin, who really became nationally renowned for what he did there at the farm, died at the age of 79. He was self-described hippie priest and freelance rabble-rouser. His message at the time was simple: live off the land while making the world a better place. And those folks just came out from the West, settled in, and for years were there. And Stephen Gaskin, the founder of the farm, passed away this past week. So, listen, we've got the lines open. What we're going to do is take a call or two before we go to the break. I've got other things I can throw out there for you, but other stuff on your mind this morning, please jump into the conversation if you'd like. Love to hear from you. And let's start things off real quickly with Donnie. Donnie, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey.
I got a question. They should make a law that anybody on the water should automatically have to wear a safety vest.
You know, it's interesting, and I'm in interest of full disclosure, Donnie. I want to ask you what you think about this. I'm into the paddle board. You know, have you ever seen those paddle boards out there? The guys who stand on the board and you paddle with like a kayak paddle, and it's a large surfboard. Now I go out there. Now under the law and under most laws, if you're over a certain age, I think is it 18, 16. You can go out, you can be on board with the boat, but you have to have all the life vests on board. Now, I strap a life vest to my board, but I don't wear it. And I'm guessing you're going to say, well, Nick, that's crazy, because if you fall in, what good is the board going to be, or the life vest strapped to your board, right?
Right. Are you strapped to the board itself?
I do have an ankle bracelet that straps me to the board, okay? But if I were to be knocked unconscious, which I don't know how that would happen, but if I were, I would drown.
Right.
But I can tell you this.
Everybody should be automatically have to do that or pay a bad fine. I don't know how to swim, but I can swim in a swimming pool because it ain't that deep. I know how to swim under the water. I don't know how to swim on top, though.
No, good. And at least you recognize your limitations. So I think Donnie, if he went out on the lake, would have a life vest on. Now, I can tell you right now, unequivocally, unless I am knocked out or have some type of bizarre medical condition while I'm out there at that moment, and I guess those things could happen, I could have a heart attack or something, I am not drowning if I fall off my board in the lake. I'm not. I'm not being arrogant. I'm not being cocky here. I am a very strong swimmer. I'm tethered to my board, and when you paddle, it gets very hot, and wearing a life vest is constricting and a problem for me. So I have either a waistband, which has a life vest in it, or I attach a life vest to my tether. And that's good enough for me. You know, if my son went out who's not as strong a swimmer, I'd insist on him wearing the vest, okay? If you're on a boat, you have to have life vests for the number of people that are on the boat, but it doesn't mean you have to wear them. To me, it comes down to adults' personal responsibility and being smart. And I can tell you this, if I was not a good swimmer, I'd be wearing a life vest. If I was in a situation where I felt I wasn't going to be able to handle it, you know, like when I'm out on my surfboard in the ocean, a lot of times there, if there's big surf and there's a heavy undertow, yeah, I'll wear a life vest. If I know there's a rip tide. We don't have rip tides in the lakes out here. Now, up against a dam, you might have some kind of undertow that can pull you. And yes, there are currents that can be dangerous, but I've never encountered a rip tide or something that just sucks you under the water on Percy Priest Lake. More likely when people drown there, they're inexperienced, they've been drinking, or they don't know what the risk is. They hit the water, they go under for a moment, they panic, they gulp a bunch of water down, and they're finished. You just have to use judgment. I understand where you're coming from, Donnie, but I'm not in favor of requiring everyone to have to actually have a life vest on, physically on, while they're on the water. If you disagree, love to hear from you, and I understand where Donnie's coming from, because that would save lives, but I don't want to have to wear a life vest every time I go out on the water. I bring one with me, but because of the physical activity, it's very uncomfortable. And I'm a strong swimmer, and I'm not going to drown. All right, let's take a break. On that note, when we come back, more of your phone calls. Lines open. The number 737-7587 is the number. 2 lines open. If you're on hold, stay there. Lots more to talk about on Open Phones Thursday right after this.